I'm so excited to have you all here today. Good morning from the West Coast. Good afternoon everywhere else in the nation. Welcome to Project ACE. ACE, Amplify, Connect, Expand. We want to amplify this conversation and this journey that you all are about to be a part of today. We want to connect the community to itself and one another. And we want to make sure that we expand that community across the nation, but more importantly, across the globe, liberating Black girls for equitable solutions, for wellness, prevention, and solidarity. We are very thrilled to have you all here with us today for Project ACE on this beautiful August 15th, 2024. I want to just hold space today for all of those that are not here with us today, all the movement makers, all the revolutionary workers, all the builders within our communities, within our nation, within our globe, who made such a platform possible. So we hold space for them today. Thank you all that are on this call today and that will be joining us from wherever you are across the world, whether that is within your home, in your headbuds, in your workspace. If you are walking right now, you have made an intentional impact to make sure that you would be in a space like this. And we do not take your time lightly. Thank you all. And hopefully we can enter into your hearts. Today, we invite you all to a critical dialogue and conversation when we center the experiences of Black girls. We have phenomenal speakers from the Boston community that's going to be pouring into all of us today. So we ask that you just be engaged. I know a lot of times we are on Zoom calls and it's easy to say, you know what, I'm going to wash some dishes, I'm going to walk that dog, or I'm going to take that lunch break. You do all that, but turn the volume up today. Turn the volume up and enjoy and engage in conversations with us. If we can please go into the next slide. Before we can go further in today's conversation, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Kanisha Lenore Jean-Baptiste Brown. I am currently located in Las Vegas and I honor it as Paiute Nation. My pronouns are she, her, and in my work, I work alongside organizations focusing on combating human trafficking and advocating for housing justice through equitable solutions and transformative services. I'm based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, but I am Haitian to my core. I am a Haitian proud girl. And I want to tell you all who my people are. My people are West African. My people are Haitian. My people are movement builders. My people are theater kids. My people like to play basketball, but we weren't good at it. My people are community leaders. My people are NDRE fans, and we right after we listen to NDRE, we go right into Tupac. That's my people, okay? My people want to see a better world for tomorrow, but most importantly, my people demand it. I also want to share my lineage. I am the great granddaughter of Alice Poligny, the granddaughter of Fote Jean Paul. I am the daughter of Shimon Jean Baptiste. And my favorite title this season, I am the mother of Tori Jr. and Toussaint Brown. I'm the proud wife of Tori Brown, the sister to Billy Vincent, the crazy niece, to all my aunties and uncles, but the auntie to Divine. I am here in this space with you all today, bringing my whole self in this conversation. My community is made up of imaginative leaders. My community are the Haitians coming to the border wanting a better purpose. My people are the Haitians who sat there years ago making sure that we were the first free Black Republic. So I ask that when we have this conversation today, when we engage you all today in this space, do not just come as one, but come as 1,000. Bring your people, bring your lineage, bring your community into this space so that we can be one. I also want to pass the microphone to my sister in service in this work to introduce herself and her people. And then we're going to jump into a chat discussion because I want to know who is on this call today. I'll pass it over to Joy Thompson.
Thank you so much, Lenore. And thank you. Also, I echo what she says. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being in this space. I am Joy. I use she, her pronouns. I want to acknowledge the Ohlone people on whose lands I currently reside in the space that is commonly referred to as Oakley, California. I also want to honor their labor and the labor of the unnamed enslaved people and laborers that made this space possible for me to inhabit. So thank you to all of those people. I am the daughter of Mildred Thompson. I am the Boyd. I am the niece to an amazing set of aunts and uncles. I am a melting pot of Oakland in the Bay Area, Tampa, Florida, New York, Georgia. My people are in all of these spaces and beyond. My ancestors and relatives can be found across the diaspora. I am an avid music lover and likely the person singing that's slightly too loud on the treadmill next to you or on the airplane next to you. That is me. And I stand on the shoulders of a long lineage of Black women who have made it possible for us to be in this space today. Black women like Kimberly Crenshaw, like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, like Tori Weaston Surdon, Dr. Melanie Turvalon, Monique Kusin. And I'm proud to say that I stand side by side by the two of the next generation's leaders, Eleanor Batiste Brown, who you've met already, and Deja Batiste, our colleague who is in this space as well. For work, I currently serve as the Director of Programs for two of the three areas of focus here at Youth Collaboratory, where my work is primarily focused on preventing trafficking of girls and building community through mentoring. And I am deeply passionate about addressing and eradicating the underlying causes of human trafficking, contributing to communities where people with intersectional identities and expertise can thrive, and creating access to leadership opportunities. So again, I'm really, really happy to be here. And to echo Lenore's point, I hope that you all too show up in this space as your full selves, bringing the people who come before you and thinking of the people who will come after you, because that is what we are here for. But we can go ahead and go on. Actually, we'll pause here and learn a little bit about who else is in the space. And well, I'll welcome Lenore back to help us do that. And thank you. I see the chat is on fire.
Absolutely. So please share something that you love about your culture, actually love about your culture. What is that? What's that thing that keep you resistant? What's that thing that keep you going? What I love about my culture is that they are creative. We just make whatever it is happen. Shannon, I love it. Yes. Oh, I love it. Yvonne, we said colorful food, colorful sounds. I'm seeing a lot of music. I hope you guys are feeling the vibe when we was in the space today. Trendsetters. Yes.
Spirit, I love that.
I love that us Nigerians love schooling and learning. Yes, I love it. Shout out to the Nigerians we have in the space today.
Our
Y'all love
beautiful
our heritage.
expressions of union. Yes.
Dancing. Yes. I love that every color is my color. That's community, right? I love that.
Absolutely.
Music, movies, faith. And I want, as we start to see the things that we love about our culture, I want us to see that there is a variety of people on here and that it's all of our culture, right? It's like music connects us all to ourselves, and food and dancing, the way we express it. And we may express it differently, but we use similar pathways because that's community. I love it. Lovers of artfulness. Keep
I
it
see
coming.
mac and cheese on this list too, and I just, yes, in my heart.
Yes, I love that as a Black woman. We are the most beautiful and stylish in every way. Yes. Black woman from Baltimore and the Caribbean. I love it. I love it. And continue on sharing that. And as we go throughout this conversation, we're going to dig deep. We're going to dig deep into what it means to have our culture. What does it mean to connect ourselves back to our community? But I want us to hold on to the pillars of who we are, and that is our culture in these beautiful ways. So continue to share this in the chat box. Thank you so much for being brave and answering what are the things about your culture, being able to thrive, resilient, style, food, music, strong. Continue on sharing that in the hopes that we all can pull a little bit of it where we may not have it so that we can build a greater community. Thank you so much for sharing this in the chat, everyone.
Yeah. Oh, I'm loving the energy. I feel like I'm here with you all. And so thank you for bringing that. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. I'm going to briefly go over what we're going to cover today. So shortly, we are going to have an amazing keynote from Alexandria Unoha, and then we'll move into workshops. The workshops are happening simultaneously. We'll talk a little bit more about which workshop will be in which room, and be sure that you all know how to get there. And then we'll have a couple breaks in here, so don't worry, we're not going to talk at you for 3 hours straight. and then we'll go into a fireside chat, and then we'll have a call to action. So 3 hours may seem like a long time, but I promise you it's going to move fast. And we already wish we had more time with you. So just know that this is our breakdown for today. For detailed times on everything, you can find that information on our event page. We can go ahead and go to the next slide, and I want to share just a little bit about Youth Collaboratory. For those of you who are new to the space, a Youth Collaboratory is a national organization that harnesses the power of the youth services community to innovate, evaluate, and drive effective strategies that assure the safety and well-being of youth and young adults. Our work is primarily focused on coordinated community response to youth and young adult homelessness, preventing and addressing trafficking, relationship violence, and sexual exploitation of youth, and supporting opportunities for young people to build community with family, peers, and others to enhance their assets, explore their strengths, and develop lasting connections. Um, the Liberation team who you're with today, so you'll see Lenora, you'll see Deja, you see Michaela, you'll hear us talking about our Girls Action Board team, and I just want to share a little bit about what that means. And so, you'll hear us talk about exploitation and trafficking, but we are very intentional that when we're talking about our work, we're talking about liberation. We're talking about a future free of exploitation and trafficking, and that is what our vision is towards. So yes, we spend a lot of time addressing and confronting the challenges that obstruct liberation for Black girls, especially, and people in general. But we are focused on liberation. And that came out of a response of the three of us sitting together in, what was it, 2018? Asking the question, what about Black girls? Because we recognize that Black girls are overrepresented and are disproportionately impacted in situations of trafficking and harm, and also underrepresented in terms of support and often harmed by the systems that are set up to support them. And so the Liberation team is a response to that, and that is the team that is bringing this to you today. So that is about us, and we can share more information about us later. But I want to give us the most time to jump into this amazing content that we have, so we can go ahead and go to the next slide. In this large room, we are going to be in community, primarily listening, but also engaging with each other. And then we'll go into breakout rooms and we'll also be engaging with each other. And anytime we engage, we want to be sure that we have some agreements. So I'm going to pass it over to Lenore to get us started on these.
Absolutely. And so we're coming in from different places across the nation and the globe, but I want us to be mindful that we are operating as one community, one band, one sound while we're in spaces today. So in order to make the space safe for yourself, we want to make sure that it's safe for others. So for our community agreements, and this is going to go throughout the entire summit. So wherever you pop up on this virtual link, we hope that you stay engaged. So when there's chat discussions, Q&A, or when questions are being asked to you from the panelists, we want that engagement. Speak your truth. What is your experience? We want to hear from you, not just only as a community, but as a person. Discomfort does not equal unsafeness. When you are feeling discomfort, sometimes that is growth. So we want you all to welcome that in today's conversations. Have grace with yourself and with others. And stories stay and learning leaves. So there might be some spaces and times as we built this community together that we will get intimate. So we want the stories to stay in this virtual space, but most importantly, we want the learning to leave. Don't get all this good gems and keep it for yourself. Share it with those around you. Intent versus impact. We want to be mindful of how we all show up and experience today, and consider power dynamics. We want to be honest about that. We're going to be very honest and vulnerable about the conversations that we're going to be having, and recognize that danger of a single story. So when we show up, right, and we are having these conversations, be mindful of the biases. Be mindful of how you engage with someone. Be mindful of how you engage with yourself. This is the space where we don't want to honor biases. We want to honor the human experience. So thank you all for your community agreements as we jump into today's conversation. And we hope that you all honor these agreements as one community. So on to the next slide. I shared with you all, we are about to go into a very critical journey in conversation. And I want to introduce a phenomenal, incredible woman, Alexandria Anoa, who is our keynote today. Alexandria is going to really go into in depth with a lot of her research and her stories in the work that she does. So who is Alexandria Noah? Alexandria Noah is a PhD candidate in Applied Development, Psychological, and Suffolk University, conducted research within the Youth, Equity, and Sexuality YES Lab. Additionally, she serves as a graduate research assistant in the FHIRE Fire Lab at Washington University in St. Louis. Alexandria is a former Rappaport Public Policy Fellow at Harvard Kennedy School and currently holds a position as adjunct lecturer at Emmanuel College in Psychological and Neuroscience Department. Her overarching goal is to foster joy and well-being with Black girls and families through practical application of her research, community engagement, youth development, programming, and policy recommendations. Alexandria employs both qualitative and quantitative research methods to explore topics such as misogynoir and developmental strategies, including resistance among Black girls. She aims to translate her psychological research findings into anecdotal school-based and actionable school-based practices and support for families. Particularly, she focused on understanding how creating joyous spaces can enhance the psychosocial well-being and health-related behaviors of Black girls within oppressive systems. Furthermore, Alexandria is the founder and creator of ATO Styles, Echo Styles, a creative art initiative that emphasizes the transformative power of dance in positively shaping Black lives and gives Black girls their flowers, figuratively and literally. In recognition of her graduate achievements, she also received several awards, including the American Psychological Association, a Psychology of Black Women Graduate Student Award for her contributions to research on the intersections of race and gender and psychology. Her research, her expertise, and her community engagement have been highlighted in various publications, including from the Boston Globe, Teen Vogue, Al Jazeera, and others. Finally, Alexandria, born in Massachusetts, was raised by a Jamaican mother who's instilled in her deep love for Caribbean. She continues to travel to Jamaica annually in hopes of creating joyous spaces for Black Caribbean adolescents in the future. So a round of applause to Alexandria. We pass the mic to you.
Thank you so much, Lenore. I can't top that. But thank you so much for inviting me to be in this space. And I'm particularly excited to be in conversation with service providers, educators, community members, and folks who just simply love Black girls and want to see them thrive. So I'll ask Coms to go to the next slide. A lot of the work has been happening in silos, right? So many of us are working in prevention of human trafficking, right? Some of us are researchers like myself, and some of us are community organizers. And I think this is a beautiful opportunity to connect our work. And we are in a time where our socio-political landscape is uncertain, right? We are experiencing a rise in harm against Black women and girls in reproductive spaces, police-sanctioned violence, male supremacist violence. For a lot of us, this is not new, right? For those of us who exist at the intersection of oppression, we know that this oppression is embedded in the fabric of our country. Black girls have been victims of violence since American slavery. For example, Harriet Jacobs became one of the first African-American women to write an autobiography about her enslavement. Her book, The Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, is a crucial text to understand Black children's experiences with dehumanization. You know, throughout the 19th century, Black writers, they exposed the specific ways African-American children, especially those who were enslaved, you know, deprived of humanity and protection as children. And these are early manifestations of violence, but we are living in 2024 where it's still here. So in this context, Black children, especially girls, face criminalization in the earliest manifestation of prison practices. The youngest child ever executed in the United States was a Black girl, Hannah Akkowish. She was only 12 years of age when she was hanged in Connecticut in 1786. And we have to understand racial and gender oppression as a consequence of white supremacy and fascism. And I'm very explicit when I'm talking about these things because we are living in serious times and Black girls' lives are at stake. So oppression can be also seen as being marginalized. But today, I think what I want us to think about is, what if we viewed the margin as the center? In my remarks, I will not only discuss the oppression and marginalization of Black girls. As a developmental scientist who studies positive youth development, I will talk about joy and counter spaces that are needed to ensure our Black girls are safe and thriving. Next slide, please. You know, in hip hop, there is always a discussion of who is the big three, right? Meaning, who are the top three rap artists? Well, Toni Morrison is in my top three. While not a rapper, Morrison uses her words so eloquently to narrate the lived experiences of Black women and girls. And in an interview after winning the Nobel Prize, she said this: "I stood at the border, claimed it as central, and let the rest of the world move over to where I was." I want us to pause and reflect on this quote. Write it down if you want. Um, but when I think about Toni Morrison and her work, she's such a literary queen and giant. And she always uses Black women and girls. She always contextualizes our experiences and makes us the center in her stories. And there was an interview that has gone viral of I think an Australian interviewer asking her, "Well, when are you going to write about white characters?" And Morrison's response essentially was, how incredibly racist was that question? Because Black girls are not the default, right? So asking that question is from a place of privilege of always being at the center. So my remarks are titled "The Margin as the Center." Next slide, please. So about myself, Lenore did an incredible job. So I am not going to top that. I won't say that much about myself, but what I will say is that I love Black girls simply, and I center them in each and every aspect of my life. I'm a researcher, writer, political strategist, and dance artist who uses these modes of scholarship and expression to discuss violence, liberation, and joy. And I'm currently working on my dissertation on Black girls' experiences with joy and how they construct meanings of joy amid violent systems. So we'll talk a little bit about what that work is looking like right now. And I actively work against entrenched systems, practices, and norms that perpetuate white supremacy. This includes addressing both overt and subtle forms of racism. Next slide, please. So I want you all to Google fascism and look at the images. I'm just going to give you a second to do that. So while you're doing that, in my own work and scholars who are in Black studies in particularly that I have conversations with, we recognize that we are truth tellers, and there is this misconception that fascism is truly a thing of the past. And we're not heading there. In fact, we have actually been there for a long time. So in order to understand what we are up against, we have to have a critical understanding of white supremacy and fascism. So if you Google fascism and look at the images, you will see pictures of books, men in uniforms, or references to European politics. And we have to tell the truths about our society if we want change for Black girls, which is why I am explicit in naming this form of violence that has been impacting Black women and girls for centuries. Next slide, please. So this begs the question, what is concealed if we only go by these images? If we only look at these images, what is concealed? If we only go by what happened in Europe, we are missing the everyday manifestations that target Black girls. And I call this the fascism fallacy. Next slide, please. So Dr. Crystal Fleming, a professor of sociology and author of How to Be Less Stupid About Race. I know that is a very funny title, but it's a great book, How to Be Less Stupid About Race. And she talks about the KK fallacy, meaning that we are beyond those times, right? But I also want to be more specific and say that there are people who think that we are nowhere near fascism, right? But fascist systems, the way they are the way they manifested before is completely different now. They are embedded in our practices and our policies, our everyday systems. And I have a picture of Dr. Angela Davis here because she is one of my favorite leaders in the Black feminist movements. She was a critical leader in the Black Panther Party, and she was also specifically anti-fascist, like a Black anti-fascist, which is something very specific and really calls us to be radical in our thinking because Black girls' lives are at stake and Black populations are at stake. Next slide, please. Our girl Toni Morrison makes it clear about what fascism is. She mentions this in 1995 at Howard University. Morrison says, when our fears have all been serialized, our creativity censured, our ideas marketplaced, or rights sold, our intelligence sloganized, our strength downsized, our privacy auctioned, when the theatricality, the entertainment value, the marketing of life is complete, we will find ourselves living not in a nation, but in a consortium of industries, and wholly unintelligible to ourselves, except for what we see as through a screen darkly. From my point of view, Morrison is also hinting at the buying and selling of people in all ways. She is discussing power, control, and dehumanization. And in the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about how these manifestations of our fascist systems are embedded in the policies and practices that derail the futures of Black girls. Next slide, please. So sexual violence, human trafficking, push out mental health. I know it's a lot, but I'm going to break it down and talk about the interconnectedness of these issues. And we have some amazing presenters that when you go into your breakout rooms, they'll be able to kind of hone in on some of these ideas as well. So fascism relies on dehumanizing certain groups to justify discriminatory and violent policies. Human trafficking similarly dehumanizes victims, treating them as commodities rather than individuals with rights, which aligns with fascist logic of viewing people as expendable or inferior. Black girls are impacted by sexual violence, human trafficking, school discipline, and mental health. Black girls who experience sexual violence are at increased risk of being trafficked. So traffickers often exploit existing trauma and vulnerabilities, making girls who have suffered abuse more susceptible to exploitation. So then we have our systemic inequities. So both sexual violence and trafficking are exacerbated by systemic racism and socioeconomic disparities. So Black girls from marginalized communities may face increased risk due to lack of resources, support, and protection. And underreporting in that stigma is also a crucial point in this conversation. Victims of sexual violence and trafficking often face stigma, which can lead to underreporting. Cultural and systemic barriers can prevent them from seeking help or receiving appropriate support. And I want to pay special attention to this idea of push out in school discipline. I know we have a few educators in this space, and I think that school discipline and push out are really important topics to talk about because as from a developmental perspective, children spend a lot of time in schools. They spend a lot of their lives in schools, and they are taught. Yes, I see some educators popping in the chat. Yes, and shout out to all the educators. It's hard work. But young people are exposed to different messages about consent, about healthy, unhealthy relationships. And Black youth are also, I want to make sure I mention this. Black youth are also increasingly attempting suicide, and Black girls have unmet mental health needs. So before I get into mental health, let me talk a little bit about push out. So to address the critical issue affecting the lives of many Black girls, push out refers to the systemic practices and policies within educational systems that essentially drive students away rather than supporting them. So in the context of Black girls, the issue is particularly pressing due to intersecting factors of race, gender, and socioeconomic status. And I want to reference Dr. Monique Morris, who is the author of Push Out, the Criminalization of Black Girls. So on my screen, you have an image that says Push Out. That's also a documentary. I suggest everyone take a look at that as well. But push out occurs when students, particularly those from marginalized communities, are pushed out of the educational system due to discriminatory disciplinary practices, inadequate support systems. So unlike dropout, which implies a personal decision, right? When someone drops out, that is their personal choice. But push out results from external pressures and systemic failures. So how does push out affect Black girls? So Black girls often face harsher disciplinary measures compared to their peers for similar behaviors. So in my experience, as a Black girl, I've been called loud, I've been called aggressive, I've been called all types of names, rather than reframing it as I'm a leader, I'm a change maker, I'm smart, I'm passionate. That slight framing does a big difference, but our system, again, these violent systems have perpetuated these just nasty stereotypes about Black women and girls. And they are kind of mass reproduced in systems like education. Exactly. Yes, I see Tamara. Yes, she has a bad attitude. Yep, verse exactly. So there's just so many different things that we all have heard that we all can attest to, right? So there's zero tolerance policies which mandate strict and often severe responses to minor infractions disproportionately impact Black girls. So these policies contribute to higher suspension and expulsion rates, disrupting their education and pushing them out of school. And I think what people fail to realize is that when you push Black girls out of school, um, they may develop a scarcity mindset, which will lead them to being more susceptible to being in an unhealthy context, right? And this idea that they only have one option, which in fact, we as youth practitioners, community organizers, community members, we have tools and resources, and we need to work together so that we can adequately get these resources to Black girls. And I want to also just mention racial bias and stereotyping. Black girls are frequently subjected to racial bias, and I saw someone in the chat mention adultification. 100%. So adultification is this idea that like Black children in particular, they are viewed as being more, adult-like, or basically they are being robbed of their innocence. So we see this reproduced in the juvenile justice system where Black children um, are more likely to be given harsher sentences because they are viewed as adults, So this adultification also manifests in Black girls in a unique way where they are also hypersexualized. So there's just all of um, these historical stereotypes and phenomenons that are manifested in our society today. And what I'll also say about education spaces is an educational system that does not reflect the diverse experiences and histories of Black girls can contribute to this disengagement and sense of alienation. When students do not see themselves represented in their curriculum, it can affect their academic motivation and success. Last week, I actually published an article in the Boston Globe, and it was talking about Black Barbie. So there's a documentary called Black Barbie, and in that documentary, the
You're muted.
oh, thank you. Um, I think I stopped by saying, was
You
I
published,
talking about Black
published
Barbie?
something? Yeah, you said you published something and you left off.
Yes. Yes, sorry, folks. I published an article in the Boston Globe, Boston Magazine, and I was reflecting on watching Black Barbie and my experience as a Black girl receiving my first Black Barbie and how impactful that was of that representation. And the directors of that Netflix documentary made sure to include researchers that were saying that how it's just so important that that little difference of seeing someone that looks like you is so important. And not only that, because we can have people of color uphold white supremacy as well, not only just looking the part, but also literally being the part, like incorporating their histories, incorporating, my work with Black girls, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, is talking about, some of the things that they're going through. Like the misogyny that I go through is different than the misogyny that middle school Black girls go through, and really having these conversations. So I wanted to make sure we talk about seeing students represent, like having students feeling like they are represented. The consequences of push out. So for sure, academic achievement, but also this increased vulnerability. Being pushed out of school increases vulnerability to various social issues, including criminal justice system, economic hardship, and mental health challenges. And speaking of mental health challenges, we need more research and we need more folks to fund research so that we can look at Black girls' mental health in a really unique and specific way. In Black youth, I think it was between 1991 or 2007 where Black youth, there was an increase of them deciding suicide. And I think it's just very harrowing and heartbreaking. Even as an adult, I struggle with finding, therapists that look like me. So, we have all of these issues. And I know right now it can seem like a lot, but what I want to say to this is, um, I think the step that we need to take is actually not necessarily working in silos, but actually collaborating together. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the next few slides. Next slide, please. So according to the FBI, at least 4 Black women and girls were murdered in the United States in 2020. I was writing a op-ed about missing Black women and girls, and I came across this statistic. Now, as a researcher, I will say that we need more research again and folks who will fund this research because there are many statistics out there, and it can be difficult to have a conclusive look at the state of Black girls. But we know we don't really need statistics for us as Black women and girls to know that this is a problem. But research and having numbers helps in terms of policy solutions, right? So we can kind of debate there, but we know that it's a problem, but having those numbers and those numerical representations are incredibly important. Next slide, please. So in my work through Harvard Rappaport's Institute and the Office of the Child Advocate in Massachusetts, I realized that Black girls are the fastest growing population within the juvenile justice system and are disproportionately represented in many steps throughout the juvenile justice process, including referral. So in addition, and this is really important, there is a large percentage of girls, and in particular Black girls in the juvenile justice system who identify as lesbian, bisexual, gender, nonconforming, or transgender. And those group of Black girls also need support in unique ways, right? And I want us to open up our minds and realize that the intersectionality of it all, right? Of, I'm a Black woman, cisgender, and my experience is probably different than a Black trans woman. So we have to make sure that we're acknowledging multiple truths, and right? And how do we create services, and how do we create programs that are unique to our experiences? Next slide, please. So fascism manifests in policies and practices that disproportionately impact Black girls. This includes the criminalization of their behavior in schools through harsh disciplinary measures, right? And to combat this, we must actively challenge and reform these systems. Ensuring that policies and practices are inclusive, supportive, and just. This means advocating for restorative and equitable disciplinary practices in accessible and culturally competent mental health care and comprehensive protection against violence and exploitation. Next slide, please. So the strategies that Black women and girls take to survive are criminalized, creating an incarceration pipeline that targets Black women and girls. And I think at this point, I want to get into some of the joy, right? A lot of the conversations that a lot of the conversations that I've had thus far can seem very harrowing and negative. And I think there's this conception that Black people as a whole, that we do not experience joy. We experience joy even despite all of this. So I wanted to make sure that I named that. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about toward a vision of positive Black girlhood. All these issues are interconnected through systemic barriers such as racism, poverty, and inadequate access to services. So the compounded impact of these systemic issues creates a cycle where Black girls are disproportionately affected by sexual violence, human trafficking, push out, and mental health challenges. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about developmental psychology and how I see a vision for positive Black girlhood that is actually nothing that I created. We all have been talking about this. I'm approaching it in a different way. Next slide. So this is an ecological systems model, right? And I'm getting my professor hat on right now, but you do not need to memorize this or anything, I promise. I just want to talk through how I can see how all of us come together and serve Black girls. And I want you to focus on what is inside of each layer. For example, mass media, school, government, industry, healthcare system. So in developmental psychology, we use this ecological systems model to talk about the ways a person's environment impacts their development, impacts the way they see things, how they respond to things like racial bias. So this provides a vision for understanding how various layers of a person's environment interact to influence their development. So when applied to Black girls, this helps me understand how different levels of their environment, from immediate settings like family and school to broader societal influences, impact their experiences and development. Next slide, please. So Toni Morrison reminds us that she stood at the border and claimed it as central and let people move to her. In this image, many of us are working like what is depicted here. We are in our own bubble doing different things. And yes, whatever role you are in centering Black girls is great. But we actually might not be reaching a full effect if we aren't considering a holistic approach. So the challenges faced by Black girls, such as educational inequities, mental health struggles, and exposure to violence, are deeply interconnected. For instance, issues like push out from school, systemic racism, and lack of access to mental health resources, they're not isolated problems, but parts of a larger web of systemic disadvantages, right? Addressing these issues in isolation can lead to fragmented solutions that fail to address the root causes or the full spectrum of needs. When organizations and individuals work in silos, they often duplicate efforts or miss opportunities for resource sharing. Collaboration allows us to pool resources, share expertise, and avoid redundancy, making our efforts more efficient and effective. Next slide, please. So in this picture, I am not a visual artist, but I created this so that we can truly see what it could look like, right? So we see the purple circle, which is our Black girls, at the margins, right? So when we identify them as the center and we move toward it, we can surround it. I bolded a few bubbles here because I want to provide some examples and some nuance. So for example, talking about the creative spaces. You know, a lot of our presenters that are going to be in the breakout rooms are going to talk about how they are creating different spaces for Black girls and healing. And this is one example in which that is shaping the development of Black girls. But in order for that to happen, we also need elected officials to have legislation that would fund these programs, right? To really make an effort. So all of these things are related, and we can't work in silos. If we really want to have this enact social change for Black girls, we have to think about the interconnectedness. For example, combining the resources of educational institutions, community groups, and mental health organizations, we can create a more robust support system that address multiple aspects of Black girls' experiences, from academic support to emotional well-being. So collaboration is not just beneficial, it is essential for creating sustainable and meaningful change, right? We cannot work together. Like the work that I do as a researcher is so impacted by dance artists and creative artists. I have a dance and psychology background. When I was in undergrad, that was one of the ways I, expressed myself. And I realized the integration of psychology and dance, and how dance is also very much related to our mental health and well-being, and that embodiment of just releasing, right? So I want all of us to really think about, or is there anybody in this room that I can connect with? Or is there anybody else that I need to talk to in order for us to build this robust agenda for Black girl development? Next slide, please. So I want to highlight digital spaces. So in the previous slide, I had bolded digital counter spaces. I want to highlight digital spaces because what I am observing, and from the research of other psychologists, is an increase of misogyny online and avenues to lure Black girls. And digital counter spaces is this idea that there are communities and platforms that will provide Black girls with safe spaces to express themselves. And we need to start creating those, but also, in my work with Black girls in middle schools, creating different opportunities for them to create that for themselves, and you being the facilitator is super powerful work. And these spaces can offer support and validation. So digital counter spaces enable connections between Black girls and supportive allies, mentors, and community groups across different contexts. So this can enhance their support network and provide additional resources and opportunities. Digital counter spaces offer access to information, resources, and opportunities that might not be available locally. And they can provide educational resources, advocacy tools, right? So we know the term like hashtag Black Girl Magic. And I've seen things like Black Girl Joy. And I've seen all of these challenges, for a lot of us, it may seem like something very small, but these are Black girls actively taking up space and expressing themselves and connecting that. And we need to encourage more of that. And I think the other thing about digital spaces too, I don't have a lot of time, but I do want to acknowledge male supremacist online spaces that are slowly getting into our school system. So for the educators there, I've received a few questions about in my work about how do we kind of monitor the digital space for our young Black girls and our Black boys, right? How do we talk about the misogyny that's online? And what I'll say to that is we need more critical media literacy, meaning that we need that education for young Black children to be like, yeah, I saw this and this gives me the ick, and I want to talk about it with an adult. Like really allowing them to assess what is in front of them rather than taking it at face value, right? Having them engage in critical thought. But I also think the digital space is a space where a lot of harmful folks are trying to lure Black girls in. So I think having digital counter spaces is really important in 2024. Like we are just seeing a rise of digital spaces being an avenue where Black girls are being harmed. And I think a lot of us, you know, we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. Next slide, please. So all of us have to take steps every day to show care, show love, and support. And, you know, if an educator, you may ask, what should I do in the classroom? You know, reframe the idea that Black girls are loud, position them as leaders and change makers. If you are a mental health professional, you may ask, how do I create a safe space? Understand their experience as unique and allow them to share what they feel. Ask them about what their strengths are and what freedom looks like to them. I conducted a study with Dr. Shauna Leith, who was a mentor of mine, and a few other Black women psychologists, and we had a study and we were looking at how Black college women make meaning of joy. How do they think about joy and freedom? And we wanted to use freedom as a way to as a strategy of resistance, right? Because it's not necessarily thinking about the imaginative, because everything is possible. But when you ask questions that allow a person to think about what life could be like or what they want in their life, it can be a powerful exchange. And I think, you know, in conversations with Youth Collaboratory and the other presenters, we realized that, especially in mental health professions, sometimes people just want to hear the trauma, and that is important to hear the trauma, but the key idea here is acknowledging trauma, acknowledging pain, but also making space for what is possible, right? So I think these two things can exist. So I hope this kind of gives you some tools to walk away with. Next slide. The role of joy in building a collective future. Joy is always good. Joy is a choice. Joy is something that we can create, reinvent, and it can be specific to us. However, we have to be a collective. So I encourage you to amplify, connect, and expand with others. Next slide, please. So we need to create more joy spaces for Black girls. These spaces are acts of resistance against fascism. In one way in which I'm thinking about joy is my work. So my dissertation work is on how Black girls in middle school construct meanings of joy amid violent systems. Next slide. So I developed a school partnership in Cambridge, and I do not want to get emotional, but these girls are literally just amazing. And in this partnership, it's a girl empowerment group, and it was first designed as a character development course, but we decided to make it a program where we meet weekly to talk about their day, talk about how everything is going, but we engage in conversations about period poverty. We engage in conversations about misogyny, and also engage in conversations about what freedom and joy looks like for them. And it positions them as knowledge creators. It positions Black girls as doers and as change makers, and it has such a great benefit to their development. And this, I saw a question in the chat. So this is a picture on the left of, you know, I took them to the Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston as a field trip because a lot of the girls said they wanted to experience art. They haven't had that opportunity. And this is a school partnership in Cambridge that I've developed. So I think examples like this is really important, where if you can volunteer, if you can create, you know, an opportunity, options for Black girls to engage in, that makes such a difference. And I think that the photo to my right is me dancing, but I put this photo because I also engage with Afro-Caribbean dance with young girls of color, specifically in the city of Malden. And in the dance space, I think a lot of people don't think that you can have critical conversations, but how I like to do things is to open the space and have people talk about their trauma if they would like. And I remember in college in particularly, I created a specific an art activism workshop with girls of color in Maine. So the school that I went to was in Lewiston, Maine. And what we decided to do was have the girls from that organization come in, and I was going to teach Afro-Caribbean dance. But before I did that, I put them all in different groups, and I had everyone had like a big poster paper and some markers, and they just talked about what this world would look like for them, right? Some honestly had really not much to do with dance, kind of, but it really allowed them to tap into that creative so that the dance became much easier. And having joy as an indicator of success is something that I think is really important as educators, as people that are always with Black girls, right? Is that joy is so important because that connection can lead to possibilities that they have not seen before. So, and I want to say that Black girls have the capability of doing almost anything. My work with Black girls in middle school in Cambridge, they're they're educating me, you know, in my dissertation research on what joy looks like for them, right? Because we all have their own we all have our own definitions, but the way they construct joy about nostalgia, about culture, about community, and a lot of these girls are of Haitian descent, and it's just beautiful to see how they're talking about their culture. And that is really what creates that safe space for them, is being able to tap into their culture and having somebody listen and engage with them. So I say that all to say is that, you know, creating more joy spaces and creating avenues for Black girls to express themselves and having options. Like, I think there's a perception, especially in the human trafficking, you know, when we think about human trafficking, sexual violence, you know, there's this idea that black girls only have one choice when there are so many choices that we can offer them and that we can socialize them towards. We can move them towards more community organizing. We can move them towards volunteering. We can move them towards success. And I think that we have a responsibility to do that because we are, again, in a fascist society. We are in systems that weren't meant for us. They were not designed for us, right? So we have to do the critical thinking. We have to do the reinvention of spaces or the creation of new spaces. Next slide, please. So I want to start to wrap my keynote with talking about Relisha Rudd. So Rudd was last seen on surveillance footage in DC in March 2014 and has never been found. She was just 8 years old. So there are a lot of stories I could have highlighted, and all of them are important. But this one spoke to me because many people including service providers and community members, were aware that her and her family needed support. She had 3 prior cases um, related to neglect and insufficient food at the time of her going missing. And there was an article that was asking, like, who failed Relisha Rudd? And I think for me to answer that, I think it's not just one person to blame, right? Going back to the ecological systems model, in visualizing that we all have a stake in this, right? And we all need to work together. So she was failed, but it's not one person to blame. And I think that this story touches my heart because, you know, her family's still looking for her, and there's so many others, but I think it's critical to know that if we are aware of something, we need to act. We need to act. The first instance, we need to act. And I hope that her story inspires you all to think about ways to show up for Black girls. Next slide, please. So I want to wrap this up by ending with Toni Morrison. I read this book in middle school, and I continue to revisit because I get a new understanding every time I read it. Morrison writes, and this is from her book, The Bluest Eye, "We thought at the time that it was because Pecola was having her father's baby that the marigolds did not grow. A little examination, and much less melancholy, would have proved to us that our seeds were not the only ones that did not sprout. Nobody's did. So Pecola Breedlove is the character referred in this passage. You know, Pecola is pregnant by her father in an event that represents deep trauma and dysfunction within her family. The community's focus on Pecola's situation, while ignoring other aspects of her environment, symbolizes their attempt to deal with or distract themselves from the broader and more painful issues, right? Morrison makes Black girls the protagonist in her stories and sees if the world will catch on. And in this particular text, this is one of my favorite books of all time, especially as someone who works with Black girls, does research, is that, again, we need to build a collective. We need to build a collective because it's not so much that we can't focus on necessarily one issue. We have to really think about, why is this not being in full effect, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with what Toni Morrison is implying here, of like focusing on the situation while ignoring other aspects of someone's environment, really symbolizing this attempt to deal with or distract themselves from broader or painful issues. Next slide, please. So the margin as the center involves reevaluating what is considered central or important by shifting focus from mainstream dominant narratives to those of marginalized or peripheral groups. It means recognizing and valuing the perspective and experiences that are often overlooked or undervalued. For me, Black girls are the protagonists in my stories, and are they yours? Thank you so much for inviting me to speak. And I am just incredibly inspired by all of you here. And I'm free to answer any questions. And I want to thank the Youth Collaboratory for this honor and opportunity to share my insights with you all. I'm in my graduate program, still learning and still open to collaborating with others. And I want our Black girls to be safe. I want them to have joy. I want them to be okay. I want them to experience life. I want them to live for a long time. So I'm just hoping that anything that I said inspired you to act, or to talk to someone that you saw in the chat, or to reach out to me and see how we can collaborate. And I'm also founder of ACO Styles, which is relaunching in 2025. And the idea is that it's a joy space for Black girls to create through dance and promote their development. So I'm hoping that you all would follow along with me on my journey to creating this vision, particularly in Boston. I just want to say thank you to everyone that's in this room. And then in the next slide, I have my contact information. So if you want to take a photo, I'm on Twitter, not on Instagram. I might be on it. We'll see. But please connect with me. I love talking with different folks and collaborating. I want to learn more. And I have my Calendly there if you want to schedule a meeting. And I have a website coming in October. So feel free to just follow along my journey of supporting Black girls and pushing them at the center. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alexandria. That was amazing. I'm pulling so much from your conversation, really around like confronting the hard things, talking about the challenges, but also the importance of building a collective and collaborating across disciplines, and centering joy as an act of resistance. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This gives us so much to think about around what is our strategy, our personal strategy around uplifting and centering Black girls in the work that we do and in our communities. So we will be sure to share the list of resources from Alexandria following the session, the live session today, as well as her contact information. And for now, we're going to go ahead and take a short break. I believe our break is going to be 10 minutes. Yep. So please use this time for your wellness and self-care, and we will see you back in 10 minutes.
Y'all, I am just so excited to be in space with all of you all today. I know I was going to the different conversations that were had in our presentation. So I know that y'all gotta feel as full as I do, okay? This is the fullest I felt since my mama, my grandma made some plantains and goat meat fried. Like, this is some fullness right here. You know, this is some fullness. And so I'm excited and I'm honored and I'm thankful to be in community with you all today. And today we will be engaging in what we call the fireside chat. So you will see across the diaspora conversations about fireside chat. And what is this exactly? And, you know, I don't have the perfect definition, but what I know it to be is like in the time of President Roosevelt, Black folks will gather together around the fireside, light some fire, have some food, and listen to what the politics was about our existence. Because unfortunately, to be alive and to be human and to be diverse was political. So we had to hear what was some of those policies. So today for our fireside chat, it's going to be a brief introduction. We're going to have a short conversation about culture. But if you are on this call and if you have signed up for this conversation, you will receive a full hour conversation between myself and the amazing, incredible individuals that I'll be bringing to this. So one of the people that I have on here is going to be Joy Thompson. And y'all already know Joy is queen. We already had Joy in the beginning provide their intro, her intro, until like her experience in her life. But I want to introduce y'all to a new sister. And this sister, what we title her as is Mo. And Mo is revolutionary in her own right. Mo is transformative in her own right. And Ro is like, Mo is breaking down boundaries. But also, Mo's an artist, a poet, musician, producer, rapper. Her studies on ethno-racial trauma healing through music grounds her creativity, using music as an intervention of healing from oppression, specifically for individuals who have been othered, most of us, right, by society. Mo produces and writes and performs hip-hop futurist sounds, honoring traditions and genre while expanding its boundaries. Her unique productions pay homage to Nigerian American roots. Her father from Lagos with Egbu Bongo heritage, and her mother from a strong, uncompromising, and while we're all here today, Black Indigenous legacy. Mo's music bridges the olds with the new and reimagined intersections of African rhythm and rap, all while sonically exploring hip-hop's relationships and its influences. Centered around what it looks like to build community for all of us to engage. Mo believes in part of global consciousness, uplifting and embracing interconnection power and unity across various disciplines, industries, and places and spaces. Her music album titled Drinks of Hope is entirely self-produced because Mo is that girl. Mo's academic credentials includes a master's degree from Diversity and Equity Inclusion and Justice Leadership from Tufts University and a Bachelor of Arts in Marketing Communication from Black World Studies from Columbia College, Chicago. Her tireless dedication in advancing social justice and fostering inclusive spaces underscores very aspects of her professional journey. So today, I come to y'all honored because I'm going to have a conversation with Joy and Mo. Let's get it, y'all, to the fireside chat.
Let's get into it. And
let's get it.
Yeah, so I feel again like we're in the same room, and I'm so excited to launch into this conversation with you both. And I look forward to the full conversation because 15 minutes is not enough time for all the genius and wisdom that is circulating and that you both have to share. But I want to just get us started in the conversation with asking the question, can you share examples where cultural practices have served as protective factors in your community and in your field of work?
All right, I think I can take that. Thank you, first of all, Lenore. I'm so grateful for our connection and thank you for that beautiful introduction. Hello, beautiful people. I go by the name of Maiwa Shanubi. I'm a community organizer and activist. I'm founder of Mics for the Missing. We spread awareness and advocate for missing Black, Indigenous people of color. This is very important. And I'm so glad to be tethered to so many folks who are shared in that mission. So when we think of culture as a protective factor, I think we first have to talk about what we're protecting ourselves from. And we as Black women and girls, we face very specific traumas. Could anyone attest to that? Just some reactions, very specific traumas. And we often underestimate the level of impact those traumas have on our suffering. So the harsh reality is we live in a racial hierarchy in our society. And as the ancestor Malcolm X said, at best, Black women, we are the most disrespected, we are the most neglected, and we are the most unprotected. But because we have to navigate such rough seas, I believe that that has made us masterful. I believe that we are the most inventive, and we are the most resilient, and we are the most brilliant. My opinion, I feel like some people share that in the chat. And so when we think about a protective factor, that's a healing factor. And the first step of healing is acknowledgement. And for my journey through Black womanhood, I'm still going through it. Being able to name a thing has been so pivotal in my own healing. So to acknowledge and then to learn, oh, wow, that's actually called internalized evaluation. And that's a direct byproduct of a deification of whiteness and a demonization of non-white hues. We see that every day. You just got to show up in society, from like social media to our ads. We see this in our job, in the institutions and organizations we work, the places and spaces. It's very interpersonal as well. And it's also very internalized. And it's once we can name it, I feel that's when we can really start to address it and then heal. So I believe that looking at our history is key. And so ancestor James Baldwin, he said it best, like history isn't in the past, it's in the present. We carried it around with us. So the history of Black women and girls in this country, in your family, in your bloodline, in your community, that lives with each and every one of us every day, right now, as we're on this call. So doing it for the culture. We always talk about the culture, doing it for the culture. There's no culture without community, and there's no community without accountability. So having responsibility for one another, to me, that's true community. And we're not responsible for many of the traumas that we face, but we are responsible for our own healing. So when we think about like the first stolen Africans who were brought to this country, they were banned from coming together and dancing and playing drums like they were accustomed to in Africa. And why was that? That was because the power of oneness amongst many coming together, like today, like ACE, like this summit, is really an opportunity to create some unbreakable healing. And if you use music as an example, I think that's a great example of culture as a protective factor, because it's long been a critical part of our communal healing as a people. This is
Absolutely.
ancestral work. It really is, right, Joy? This is ancestral.
Absolutely.
I know you're a music lover, so you
I am. And as you all, like the protective factor from, anyway, I want to get Lenore's response on this too before I launch into my things. But Mo, yes, know it, name it, protected things. Lenore, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, thank you for that, Joy. I would say this. So recently, I've been experiencing life with my grandmother, Pote Jean Paul, and from an Haitian. She's a Haitian woman, and she came out like the countryside of Haiti. And she often asking me these questions of, where are you? And at first, right, after like colonialism in life, I'd be like, I'm grown. You calling me like, where am I? I'm at Target. Like, but she constantly asked me, where are you? Where are you? And as I developed in my own healing and understanding of having an elder to ask, where are you? Spiritually, where are you? Are you okay? Because I think a lot of times when we talk about the resilience and the power of Black women, we oftentimes will be experiencing incredible pain and burden, and it will still build everything around us. And what we don't understand, and what those who are in allyship don't understand, is that to have a better future, we need to have better peace for Black women. So where am I? I'm stressed, or I'm sad, or I'm depressed, or I might need medication, or I might need to go to a doctor, or where am I? Here's where I'm at. And those are the things that I've learned with my grandmother, who's also a doula, of where am I after having children? But then also, where am I physically? Because right now we see that Black women and girls who are experiencing high rates of missing and exploited?
Yes.
Where are you? Where are you? Because if you are no longer here on the earth side, we deserve to bury you. And we deserve to have an investigation for you. Where are you? If you're at home experiencing domestic violence, we need to come get you. Where are you? If you are at home sitting lonely and depressed, where are you? We need to knock down those doors and come find you and experience joy. Where are you? So when we talk about culture being a protective factor, elders is a protective factor that Blackness brings into it. I love where we sit and stand, because young people are the ones who pilot and expand and explore new worlds. But elders are the ones who root it in who we are and our experiences.
Yes.
So we're in Maya's culture as a protective factor is honoring our elders, honoring those that come before us, those that are on earth side and those that are not. Those that are directors, maybe we're managers. Those who are, at home cooking the foods while we're over here doing these tech jobs. The elders that we ignore so many times are the pillars to what we need to for tomorrow.
Pillars.
And so Black culture honors elders. Like before we had government systems and before we had laws that became in a colonial space, we had elders. So when you look at your policies and your Congress and running for office, you had to run to be chief in the motherland.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't teach us strategy. We taught them it with compassion. So culture as a protective factor, we need to have compassionate leaders, and Blackness has taught me that.
Yes, I'm with you. I'm with you both as a music nerd and someone who just this past weekend really benefited from that intergenerational time. But recently I was at an art gallery and Dr. Angela Davis was speaking, and it was at the start of Black August, which we don't have time to get into that now, but we are in the midst of it, and this is intentional. But she was talking about we did great things and we also made some mistakes, learn from our mistakes, and so the humility in that and the things that we gain from that in our lineage, we have to have that in order to move forward. And we also have to grab the people who are going to take us on. But the other thing that's coming up for me around culture as a protective factor is really around the things that my grandma did, like she grew tomatoes. We would sit on the front porch with a salt shaker and eat tomatoes. My mother grows vegetables too. And I think of indigenous communities like the Ohlone tribes that have been stewards of this land of Oakland, California for a millennia. These folks took care of the land, they took care of the ocean. So when I think of culture as a protective factor, is yes, it's got me and it's got our community, but these are the original sustainability practices. These are the things that keep us as a global community healthy and well, which is the thing that I was hoping we would learn from the pandemic, is that there are no borders, that we are all impacted by the communities that are surrounding us, and that we can't do for one without doing for others. But when we look at these indigenous practices, they help us in the service of those things. The other thing is that, we are confronting race-based bias that absolutely unfortunately leads to death for Black girls and Black women. These are conversations that none of us on the call are shying away from. You as participants are not shying away from. And what that means is that we are in a heart space. And when we are in a heart space, we are oftentimes actively navigating grief or triggers or things like that. And when I think about the community and people in New Orleans, and you hear that second line, that we are dancing, to Alexandria's point, like dance is medicine. We are dancing while we are grieving. We are singing while we are grieving. And these are the same practices that we see in West African culture. And so when you see Black women and Black girls moving their bodies and dancing, it is not an absence of all the things that we're going through, but it is because we are releasing that. That is a somatic healing practice. So there's so many ways that just the things that we do, we think we're just doing this, but they are gifts from our ancestors. And so there's so much of this, and I really could go on, but I just want to say that just to notice the ways that you don't have to necessarily have to find something new to do, but that thing that you have been doing is healing you and healing the people around you and creating sustainability for the broader global community.
Wow, I couldn't agree more with both of you all there. You can't have a tree without roots, and like I think that's the thread between everything we said is getting back to the roots and the intergenerational connection, and really understanding where we came from and taking those learnings into the future. So, man, the next 45 minutes, y'all, will be lit the next time we get together and send that out to everybody. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Thank you both for this brief conversation. I know we could talk for a full few
Full
hours.
hour.
Yeah. But I'm gonna pass it on to Lenore so we can move on to the next phase of this conversation, and we can go ahead and go to the next slide.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Mo.
Do
Thank
I
you
have
so
do
much.
I have 1 minute? I did want to share
Let's
like
go.
so this is just an organic moment, Joy. I'm reading Black Girl You Are Atlas by Renee Watson, and just thinking of what everyone just said today just made me think of this poem in this book. And so I just want to read it really quickly. It's called A Black Girl Gives Thanks. For the aunties by blood and by choice who knew how to give a warning, to look or clear their throats, or sitting forward just enough to get the point across. For every peppermint candy in Werther's Original smuggled from hand to hand on Sunday mornings, for hand clapping games, a hula hoop and roller skates, a brown baby doll, or a brown angel on top of a Christmas tree, for all the gossip swirling around, two young ears at the family gathering, for prayers and warnings, for the advice asked for and advice given, for pressed combs and royal crown hair grease, for brown hands that braid and twist thick tresses, for the way, girl, it's song, it's confirmation, it's chastisement, it's prayer. For cornbread and honey butter, and always a crock pot holding home. For freedom fighters and protest poets, for every tall tale past that tells the story that we survived, how we survived. Oh, give thanks. Oh, give thanks.
Ashe. Thank you for that, Mo. And before we wrap this portion, Mo, can you repeat the title of that book? Black Girl You Are Atlas. Got it. Thank you. Thank you. Whew.
Much. That
Thank
that
you.
was full. So to join us, we will be having a full conversation with the incredible Mo. That experiences you all have, we have a full conversation of it. So those who registered and those who want to share it to their sister friends, you will receive an email with all of the resources, including that book title and including a full conversation of culture as a protective factor for Black girls. Thank you, Mo. So I would like to transition us to the next phase. And so what we're going to now is what you're going to also receive is a solidarity pledge to advocate for Black girls for at least one new strategy in centering Black girls and efforts to impact them in my organization. What we want is we don't want you to leave this space like, okay, I'm inspired, and then what? So here is what we're going to do. You're going to receive a pledge that's going to come into your inbox. And as we reflect on all that was shared today, we want you to locate yourself in the narrative. And what's important today is for you to be honest. Where have we fallen short in our solidarity to Black girls? In what ways do you actually seem to grow or that you want to grow? What work that you actually commit to doing and continuing? Because some of you are already doing the work, and we honor you and we see you. Because the thing is, Black girls can't continue to be overrepresented in the needs of services and underrepresented in support and opportunity. The clear indication that is our solidarity. It's us that's the problem. In order for us to advance the solutions for Black girls, we must be able to address those flaws. Now, some of the conversations you've heard in your breakouts, we talked about biases and how biases work, right? Biases and racism. And we understand that this is historic and is also sometimes, unfortunately, part of the human function. We can be biased at times, but so is community. That's the one thing we always need to become is community. So while bias is the human factor, so is community. Community is the part of ourselves that we need to start speaking the loudest. We want you all to begin to radically, after today, reimagine how we begin to center Black girls in your organizations and, most importantly, in your communities. The Black girls in your homes, the Black girls you see at the grocery stores, and the Black girls in your organizations. And to honestly, really, there's nothing radical about centering the experiences of Black girls, because Black girls emerge into Black women that transform this nation and save it from itself time and time and time again. From the Black doulas, to the Black doctors, to the Black farm people, to the Black woman that makes you laugh at work, to the Black woman that held you before your own family did, to the Black women that bring their children to conferences. Black women do it time and time again. So therefore, this radical reimagination is not radical, it's simply owed. Today, we share with you all the Solidarity Pledge. We ask that you all do not complete it today. I don't want y'all to go see this and be like, oh my God, I'm about to complete this because I'm feeling all energetic. What we want to do is we want you to see it and sit with yourselves, because when you support Black women, whether you are a Black woman or not, you support yourself, because we are an entry to humanity. So when you see this document, we want you to be able to really see yourself in it. So I will begin on the first part of the pledge that we hope that you will complete on another day. My strategy is to, and then write what your strategy is to. And it could be something little. Saying hello to the Black girl in your community. Volunteering for the local organization to be that mentor. Help with that Black mother that you see at the grocery store. Or addressing an internal bias to why you don't even have Black friends, right? So my strategy is to, and you fill that out to your discretion after this conference, and I will advocate for the implementation for this strategy beginning that date, and I will include at least Black girls in the development of this strategy. I pledge to be responsive and help to elevate at least one advocacy effort that works to end health, economic, and educational disparities of Black girls.
I pledge to identify at least one action that my program or organization can do to make our services more equitable.
I pledge to use and promote the use of the lens informed by cultural humility.
I pledge to engage only in strength-based relationships with Black girls and call out or call in harmful deficit-based programming, policies, practices, and behaviors from my peers, and welcome the return if I'm engaging in harmful practices myself.
Next slide, please. So we are going to send that out to you all. And our hope is that, again, that you do not necessarily fill it out today. You will have access to it for your organizations, but most importantly, because we clock into this, but you can't clock into life. Most importantly, for yourself. So this is the Black Girl Solidarity Pledge on how you choose to move forward. On the screen right now, you will have two QR codes. Welcome to life post-COVID. Now get your phones out and screenshot these two QR codes that you all see, and I'll pass it to Joy to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the Black Girl Solidarity Pledge you will get, but also and we'll share the Culture as a Protective Factor survey as well. But just to give you some context on what it is for, whenever we are in space, we're seeking to hear from Black women, from Black girls about the practices and the things that have been protection, have been bombs, have helped to hold them through. We talked about dance, we talked about intergenerational relationships, we talked about music. So we created a survey in 2020 or 2021, and we've been asking everybody, all the Black women that we come in contact with, to please complete this survey, because we want to lift this up and amplify your voices around specific practices that can be used in programs and organizations, but also to build authentic relationships in communities. So if you have something that you want to share with us, we want to know. And please take some time. The survey shouldn't take more than 15 or 20 minutes unless you're like me and you like to meditate on it, and you just make yourself some tea and go ahead and complete the survey. But you can find that here, and we'll also share that out with you afterwards.
Absolutely. And next slide, please. So what you're going to receive right now is you're going to receive a full link of like your experience, right? Where we've been. So I actually want to cue up our Black Girl Speak Your Mind. If we can have that play right now. Yes, please.
Black Girl Speak Your Mind. We see it too often. We're pushed aside and constantly criticized for the color of our skin, with roots of great divine and skin with dark complexion. Finding this word of their many objections. They fear us when they speak our mind or say that we have an attitude. Fear us no more, as our voices will be heard at a great magnitude.
Black Girl Speak Your Mind. So many words, but they went unspoken until I decided I would no longer allow myself to be unheard or feel broken. Black Girl Speak Your Mind.
For many places and many faces travel with pace, society and race try to hide their face from the trauma we face in which they try and erase. We move about in unison. What do we do to them?
Black Girl Speak Your Mind. I used to think if I showed my true colors, what would society think? Would they pity me, laugh, or consider me to be overreacting? Every day, my thoughts ran so deep.
We spend most of our lives being judged on how to move correctly, how to dress, how to speak, how to walk with class. We are seen weak, told to sit up straight when they walk past. Say your truth.
We carry that weight. We've built and we've healed. We've fought, not folded. Where we are determined ends, someone to another must begin.
We are outgoing, charismatic, and innovative.
So are you even looking if you don't see extraordinary?
Black women turn heads with their intricate minds and lovely aura.
So are you even looking if you don't see confidence?
We are the foundation, blueprint, and trendsetters.
So are you even looking if you don't see authentic leaders?
We are loving, nurturing, and deserving.
So are you looking if you don't see passion?
We don't fit in any old box, not to be mistaken for mediocre nor average.
Every day until we decide.
When we are divine, we are put in mind. Sister to sister, we are subject to crime. Violence and harm seem to fade through time. We rise up above with thick armor and pure skin. With brains of excellence in shaping the future, it has no end. Moving to brighter outcomes when they were meant to be tragic.
The true representation of Black girl magic.
But this isn't where it starts or stops. Come sit at this table that centers us. It prioritizes girls and women who share our same needs. It is a space that values our expertise, where we have the opportunity and live out our dreams.
You are to respect everyone at this table.
There is intelligence, beauty, power, and life at this table. This is where we're equal. There is no competition. This is where we are engaged in our craft. This is where we are encouraged.
Our path is our choice.
Table or classroom, center Black girls. Table or workspace, center Black girls. Table or organization, center Black girls, no matter the time or the place. Our voices are powerful just as much as our race.
Yes, there is intelligence and beauty and life at this table.
Absolutely. Today has been amazing, and I just want to thank all of you for showing up for yourselves, showing up for the Black girls, the Black women in your community in new and exciting ways, and pouring into yourselves. Today has been beautiful. I want to invite all of our amazing speakers to add their socials in the chat. We will also follow up and include their information, contact information, in the follow-up materials, but I just want to be sure that you all have access and can connect with them. Please look out for additional information and materials coming from us. We'll have the video recording of this session. We will have tip sheets and materials that have been put together lovingly from our Girls Action Board team. We will have the full fireside chat conversation with Mo, just know that there are a lot of resources coming to you. We really want to lift up the amazing work that's coming out of Boston and just sprinkle a whole lot of extra love on the Boston community for their efforts and all that they are doing. Just wanted to say that, and I will pass it over to you, Lenore, for next steps and evaluations.
Absolutely. So if y'all can navigate to the chat discussion, we are going to have an evaluation link. And for that evaluation link, let us know how we're doing, or you could take your phone out and take a screenshot of what you see on the camera right now or what you see on your laptops. And please fill out those evaluations. That allows us to continue more spaces like this. So it is important. And we also know that we want to make sure, like, how was the experience for you all today? Time can never give them back. You can give us money, you can give us all kinds of food, you can give us, energy, but time you cannot give back. And y'all gave us time today. And so we are so thankful and we are so honored and we are so happy to be in space with you all today. But today I really want to hold space for all the young Black women and girls we didn't get to. The Black women and girls who are living in that existence right now, who are in the hurricane eye right now of their exploitation. Black women and girls who are right now experiencing domestic violence and sexual assault. And Black women and girls who are right now in the midst of everything that the system has created for them. We also want to hold spaces for any survivor and all survivors. Survivors, when you have your diverse identity and our system wasn't expansive enough to hold you. Survivors from different cultures and countries and identities and sexual orientations who felt invisible. Today, we see you and we honor you. And most importantly, we love you. So thank you all so much for being on this call with us today, for building what we call our community. Please go to the chat and fill out the evaluation because we want to know how can we do this more and do it more often. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for our presenters. Thank you for everyone that has logged in and gave some energy to this space. Please fill out that Black Girl Equity series and the evaluation link, and then look out for that email that will come with all of the resources to come. Be well, but most importantly, be joyful. Thank you.